Diana, I got your number from your resume on LinkedIn. My name is Sarah, and I'm an old student of... And like you, we had a relationship. I don't know the circumstances of your relationship with him, but it concerns me to see his behavior continued long after I knew him. I'm curious if you would be willing to talk to me about your experience. If not, I respect that.
Sarah, I am at a loss of words, but also have so much to say. Yes, I would love to talk to you about this. Were you a student in Iowa? This is Diana.
This is Sarah.
And this is Blooming After Grooming, our podcast.
Yesterday, I had a massage, and Sarah, for the first time ever, I didn't even know I could do this. I started crying.
Did you fall asleep? Oh.
No, I fucking started crying, emotional crying.
Wow.
I know.
You're like that Leanne Rimes video with her jaw. Google it. It's a whole internet thing.
I have not seen.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's probably good. Question mark.
It's good.
Probably good.
I think it's good. So my back has been hurting, my lower back. I was trying to work on my abs 2 weeks ago, and I sprained my back. So I haven't been able to do that. And so I was telling her, because she was like, is there any place for pain? And I was like, yeah, my lower back. And then all of a sudden she's working on my upper back, my shoulder area. Mm-hmm. And there's this big ass knot there, and she's working it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, man, there's something there I need to let go. And then I start picturing Dan. And then of course, I'm crying, but I can feel this lump, I can feel it getting worked out, and my back, not feeling as elevated or intense as I'm crying it out. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, keep going, please. But
she's like, is this physical or emotional pain?
I know. And I really think if she and I had a closer relationship, because it was my first time getting a massage by her, and if Kristen and the other masseuse were in the same room, I probably would have just started bawling, and that probably would have really helped. But I didn't want to ruin the massage for us,
sure,
or make people feel uncomfortable. But I really think that's what I need.
I'm still team. Your talk therapist is in the room with you while you're getting a massage, and then you talk about your shit while you're getting a massage. I think it's the dream. Can you imagine?
I really think that's a great idea.
To be fair, though, I've never actually done it. I just think it's really good in theory, and it's it might ruin the massage because you chew in your head, or it might be hard to talk about stuff because you chew in your body. I don't know. I think it's interesting because a lot of times when I leave therapy, I feel really physically and then I think, is this good for me? What am I doing? I'm paying somebody all this money to walk away and feel my shoulders are inside of my ears, so then I'm oh, it would be nice to just be no, nervous system, no,
yeah,
we can talk and not go this the whole time.
Yeah, I
should give my massage therapist headphones, noise canceling headphones, and then Skype in my therapist and be we're gonna try something. See how this goes.
Or I don't know, cool, if I ever do the somatic touch thing that Joy wants me to start doing, maybe that's a combination of that. It's just touching and pressure, but not full blown massage. But oh my god, yeah, it was wild. I really did it, and I was nowhere near sad or anything. I was with Kristen, sure. We were having a great day. Took a gummy, so I was feeling good and relaxed, but then I was just okay, there's something I'm not. I heard something in me was just you are carrying something, fucking let it go. And once I was starting to, I was oh, okay, I'm listening. Yeah.
The closest I ever came to that was after I had my pregnancy loss and my surgery. The first massage I had after that, I feel I cried, but it was more it was more of that, how sometimes I feel I'm only really, every once in a while I do that. Sometimes you're getting a massage, because I only get massages from women. I don't think I've ever had a massage from a man. I sometimes just really like the idea of women tending to other women. And I feel the beauty of that got me, and I cried. That was the one time I did it.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, she's here. All right. I'm gonna let her in.
Fellow Midwesterner Dr. Sally Kenney wears a few hats. She is a faculty member in the political science department at Tulane University, as well as an affiliated faculty member in the law school and an adjunct professor in the global community health and behavioral science department of the School of Public Health and Tropical Medicine at Tulane. Whew. Her research interests include sexual violence, women's imprisonment, women in leadership, gender and judging, judicial selection, feminist social movements, women and electoral politics, the European Court of Justice, and exclusionary employment policies. Oh, also, and pregnancy discrimination. She is the author of Gender and Justice: Why Women in the Judiciary Really Matter. She is also the host of the Deconstructing Rape podcast. Overall, she is a woman with a lot of experience and expertise, lots to say, and lots to teach us. And while I have you here, dear listeners, please remember to follow the show, give us a rating, leave a comment, engage in the social media, send us an email. All of those things still matter, and we've been slacking on giving you those reminders. Okay, welcome to the show, Dr. Sally Kenney.
Hello.
Got my closet here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Okay, I'm hoping this mic is working. I'm not used to doing it myself like y'all do. I had to call my husband for help. I hate that.
Like, I got this.
I'm an independent woman. I can do this on my own.
No. Alas.
Well, thank you so much. We're so happy, weeks later that we're making this work. We're so excited to have you on the show, Dr. Kenney.
Please call me Sally.
All right. I will call you Sally. Thank you for the permission. I like to, wait for the person to be like,
my students don't, so I appreciate it that you do.
So before we get into the conversation, I'm really curious to hear about how long you've been following Bruce Springsteen around. Was this the first time?
No, I'm afraid. So my husband's been to more than 20 concerts. He's a madman. Wow. And so we went the last tour I think I went twice. I went twice this time and he went 4 times.
Wow.
The thing that's the most embarrassing about it all, is, when he came out with that song, The Streets of Minneapolis, I thought it was like one of those groups that does a, in the manner of so-and-so recording. And I said to my husband, it's not really a very good facsimile of Bruce. And he goes, it is Bruce.
That's funny. I saw Bruce Springsteen live in concert in Minneapolis years ago. It was a very good show. He puts on a heck of a show.
He does. And it's so joyful. And, especially at this, the thing that I appreciated the most is, I've been to him when he was stumping for Carrie, in Minneapolis. And, and he said, I needed to do this to raise my own spirits. And it's like you think about, he's still out there. He's doing it all. He's, trying to get the message out, and all this stuff. And it's like, he's just like all the rest of us. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Oh, yes.
And what can I do about it?
He did a really great interview with Mark Maron, who doesn't do his podcast anymore, but WTF with Mark Maron, where he talks about that. He talks about his upbringing and his life. And he's like, you could do one thing or another thing with that anger. You can fuel something really awful, or you can fuel it into something that's going to help you and possibly help other people.
Just the physicality of his show too. For a man of a certain age.
Oh my God. Well,
he is running around and
he doesn't take any break. He doesn't take any break.
Oh
when we saw Paul McCartney, and I was thinking, I'm not sure he's playing his instrument. Is he way past it? And then he's playing all these solos, both on guitar and piano, all by himself. He sort of said too, I do it because I love it, and I have to do it because that's what I do, as opposed to I don't need the money or whatever.
Yeah.
But Norman told me that the drummer has to ice his hands for 4 hours afterwards. And if you watch, if you sit in the back, so sometimes we've sat in the seats that are really close, but they're right behind. And he's jumping up on his seat and hammering down with his whole force of his body for 3 hours. And he's in his 70s too. They're pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, it's they call him the boss for a reason.
I know. Well, you guys like your concerts. I know. I've been listening.
We do go to a lot of concerts. This is true. Yes, there are more embarrassing bands to be a super fan of. I have a friend that's been to dozens and dozens of Fish concerts, and he gets so much sassafras from our friend group about it. He's obsessed. He will like live stream listen to shows that he's not even at. Like, yeah,
that's how Norman owns he listens to everyone. And I remember a friend of mine who was on the faculty at Iowa. She's one of the people I interviewed on my podcast. She does torts. They took her daughter and her friends to a Fish concert in New York City, and they, unbeknownst to them, of course, they snuck out at night and like had a great time. And then the next day, her daughter goes, "What colleges are in the Village?" And then, of course, she ended up at NYU. You know.
Oh, funny.
Okay, well,
now that we've gotten the important Bruce Springsteen conversation out of the way,
can you share a little bit more in depth, as much as you are willing? What led you to your academic career? Because I know you said like you see yourself first as a scholar. What led to that journey of you going down that path?
Well, it was interesting because I just read this great book. I don't know how you say her last name, by Rebecca Kwong. This is like her 6th novel, and she's working on her PhD. And I don't even know how you say the book, but it's like Catabasis, which means descent into hell. And it's basically an academic novel about like sexism and racism in the academy at Oxford and Cambridge and all of that. I had a terrible bully, horrible human being of a dissertation advisor. And so I had this great fellowship from the Women's Research and Education Institute, which still gives congressional fellowships, and they pay for women to work on the Hill because most congressional staffers get their jobs by who they know, not necessarily what they know. And so then you're positioned there. And so I got this great fellowship in 1986, and I was working on civil rights stuff on the Hill. And that's when I really realized I wanted to be a scholar. I had thought, I can't write my dissertation. I'm totally blocked. I'm never going to make it. So this is going to be a respectable way to quit without being a loser. You know, I could say, well, you know, I never finished my dissertation because I was doing this, you know, important work for Congressman Hawkins, you know, blah, blah, blah. But during that year, that's when I really decided. I joke that it was because I didn't want to wear pantyhose. But then I ended up having a job, you know, in New Orleans where I had to like, you know, girly up for all sorts of stuff. I really liked the kind of reflective side of things. And as it turns out, I really, really liked teaching. You know, it was really a great fit for me, even though I wish the academy wasn't so sexist and horrible, because there's just so many wonderful things about it, you know, being able to follow your interests where they lead and learn interesting things and teach and be a part of, you know, people's development. And that's just really great.
Nice. Okay. So did you live in New Orleans for a while then?
Yeah. So I was, you know, minding my own business at the University of Minnesota. I was directing the Center on Women in Public Policy, and I was a faculty member in the Humphrey Institute. And I'd had this weird thing where I'd started to be called for kind of prestigious chaired positions, but I didn't get them. And I talked to one of my friends about that, and she said, "Oh, you're the girl in the pool." They like want to interview somebody to say, "Oh, you know, we looked for a woman, but there weren't any that were worth a damn," you know?
Yeah.
And so they'd interview me and then pass me over. So when Tulane called, I was like, I don't want to do this. But my dean, who was a real dick, he told me the only way I could get a pay raise was if I had an outside offer. And I was being paid $47,000 less than my closest male comparator.
Wow.
And so I thought, okay, they said, you know, I was like, I don't want to do this. It's too exhausting spilling your guts to these, you know, recruiters and doing these multiple airport interviews and then not getting it, you know. So they said, no, come down and do the interview. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get my pay raise. And then I was totally seduced by the president and the provost and their vision, you know, and I said to the provost in my first interview, like, why would you take your best researchers and teachers and make them administrators? And he said, because you're the only one who's going to be able to really guide the institution to excellence. And I was like, that is the right answer. Like, I want to work for you. And the president at Tulane at the time, coming back from Katrina, he wanted to make Tulane the service learning university. So everybody who went to Tulane had to take 2 courses of service learning. And that's really kind of what we were doing at the Humphrey Institute. We had our students do internships over the summer in organizations and then try to integrate that into their academic work. And the president said to me, "You're the expert. You tell me what excellence looks like." So then I was there. And then I was a law person. So we had tried at Minnesota in the 90s, we thought, we know the criminal law is a disaster for sexual assault survivors. It doesn't work for anybody. Everybody's told us that, and it's been studied over and over. But what if, we could use the student affairs code? Because a lot of students are like, well, I don't want my rapist, in jail. But I don't want him in my dorm. I don't want him in my class. I don't want him to graduate with me, or I don't want him to hurt another student and have access to parties. And so we tried to make that work, and we couldn't make it work. And then under President Obama, Vice President Biden issued this thing called the Dear Colleague letter. And he sort of said, how Title IX has this requirement that you're supposed to provide equal educational opportunity. And like every previous administration, we're going to issue you a letter saying, yeah, we mean it, but this time we really mean it. And so y'all have to do something about sexual assault on campus. And if you don't do it, we're going to fine you. And you could lose some of your federal funding. And so all of these students started to get together, and they started using the internet, and they started coaching each other about filing Title IX reports. And that's really was an important kind of precursor to Me Too. There was, all this campus organizing. And it was so exciting because it was like, oh my God, we're maybe going to be able to make this system that works for survivors, right? And so one of the things that was excited that I was help fund the person who participated is they started doing these things called climate surveys. So they would actually really measure to see, basically what happened in 1980, the first people started measuring sexual assault on campus, and they kept coming back with these numbers, and everybody, there were famous feminists who were doubters, and they was like, there's no way it can be that many. There's no way, right? Your protocol's wrong. This is wrong, blah, blah, blah. But they kept finding the same really high numbers, but nobody ever believed them. Right. And so all of a sudden, it looked like several members of the Senate, Claire McCaskill and some of the other people, they were going to require colleges to do these surveys. And so Tulane did a climate survey. And at Tulane, they sort of said, this isn't a problem at Tulane because our football team isn't good enough. And
what?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because we're not the University of Florida, and
because football players are the only sexual abuse predators in the world,
and they're the only predators.
Do it if they're good.
Exactly, they only do it if they're winners. And the other one was
a lot of weird messaging.
And then it wasn't a big problem. Because our sororities and fraternities were weak, so people didn't live in the fraternity houses, and you couldn't pledge until your second semester of college, both of which I think are great things. But so then, they did the survey, and we had the highest number ever registered. Then I really started getting in big time, and I started bringing in all these really great people. And there was this fabulous woman in the White House who had, spent her whole career on violence against women. She'd worked for Biden when he was a senator and stuff, named Lynn Rosenthal. And she and several women in the Justice Department just did all of this great work with students. And there were these great Catherine Lehman and these other people in the Department of Education. And they just really made, so much happen. And we thought, this is going to go forward, and Hillary's going to be the president, and the Senate's going to require all this stuff. And then blammo,
the complete opposite end of the spectrum is what we got with that. Oh,
then we entered the black hole that was 2016.
And everything just went to shit. I really wanted to be at the school that was in the vanguard, that we were going to do all the good things. And the schools that are doing it, so for example, Michigan and Michigan State, well, they both had such big scandals that it costs the presidents their presidency, and that millions and millions of dollars with Larry Nassar and all that stuff. So those schools are doing some great things. And interestingly enough, for example, Drake University here, They're doing all the right things. Like I met their people, you know, and it's like, oh, you're doing all the right programs, and it's so heartening. But most of the public institutions have totally scaled back. And that's just not, and I now kind of believe it's kind of hopeless.
So I remember when It's On Us, when that campaign like was really being pushed, because I was an undergrad, I think, at the time. Was it 2012-ish around that time?
Yeah, 2013, I think they held like so I was at the White House for the release of that.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
It was exciting. It was so exciting.
You know, I didn't live on campus. I've always been a commuter. My university was like 45 minutes away. So like I didn't do a lot of like parties. I went to like one college party. So I don't feel like I ever really was like aware. You know, I'd never experienced anything when I was at NIU, but I remember like seeing a lot of like movement. And then when I went back for grad school, I went to the same school for grad school. There was like a stronger presence almost. I feel like this was like 2014. Those steps, at least like, you know, that campaign, that time was really a precursor for Me Too, and like something that probably really helped lay some kind of like framework or some kind of foundation for people.
I have learned so much, you know, like I've been working in this field for like 15 years, but there's this complete separation between people working in the academy and people working in, you know, the nonprofit sector. You know, like school stuff is different than rape on campus. That's different from rape in war. That's different from trafficking. That's different from intimate partner violence in a domestic violence relationship, you know, and everybody's siloed and they don't know what the people in the other niches are learning and thinking about it. And so, you know, I've learned a lot, you know, like just listen to that person who was the SNAP, you know, go-getter.
Joelle.
Yeah. Yes. Or these other folks like that, you know, because I feel like we don't really have any kind of coherent history of our movement.
Where would that begin as far as like linking the academic world with like the nonprofit or even just like the activists, you know?
It's sort of weird because like, you know, somebody like I had this person, Sarah Weinman, on my podcast, and she referred, I said, oh, nobody's really keeping track of blah, 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 like marital rape prosecutions. And she's like, well, yeah, they are. This group, you know, that I've never heard of. And I'm like, who are they? You know, and then it's like, then after she tells me about it, it's like I see the group everywhere.
I think it's the connectivity that is the issue. You know what I mean? I think silo is the perfect word, right? It's like there's so many people who are so enraged about so many things, specifically just around sexual assault, just that one subject, right? And to your point, that one subject has 1,000 categories and 1,000 gray areas and like so much nuance, right? And it does feel like everybody's kind of in these little silos. And I think that's been kind of one of the funnest, maybe fun sounds like a weird word, but exciting aspects of like what Diana and I have gone through for the last, I don't know, 4 years since we found each other is not only like our personal journey of holding our abuser accountable, but like meeting all these amazing people along the way who are doing all these really fascinating studies or working with community members. But there's still, it does feel like that thing of like, but this person's never met that person. And these two people would be amazing together and could do some really powerful things. And especially when you're talking about trying to impact legislation, you need to get those like groups of people connected.
Well, that was what Lynn Rosenthal in the White House was so amazing about. And she was also just a really generous person. And so, you know, I went to her and I said, and she's like, oh, you have to get connected to David Lisak, and oh, you have to get connected to this person, you know. So she was really good about that. And she was trying to put that together for It's On Us, you know, because she was really a DV and reproductive rights person. And I think, you know, like the clergy, like there's the people, like people are in there. The clergy group is separate from the Boy Scout group.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But they could really help each other out, right? Like that's the thing is it's like, I think it is important to have those little niche areas because there are so many specifics to those certain kinds of abuse. But yeah, I've always thought like, okay, like in Iowa, you know, our statute of limitations for civil cases is atrocious. It's one of the worst in the country. You get 1 year to come forward. And I've always thought like, man, if you could get all the Boy Scout survivors, if you could get all the Catholic Church survivors, if you could get all the school survivors, all of the doctor survivors, all the gymnastic coach survivors, like whatever, just in Iowa, if you could get all of those survivors together to campaign and reach out to their legislators and really like hit it hard with like press, like you could really, I think, probably do something. But it's like, how the hell do you?
I know. Well, I'm 100% with you on this and trying to set it up, with Senator Peterson and stuff. But, okay, here was like the first hurdle. The Boy Scout survivors list isn't public.
Yeah.
And so like some of those people who filled out the paperwork as Boy Scout survivors haven't told their spouses.
Yeah.
So they're not going to go talk to a legislature. And then how do we find them to identify them? So, our task is to go find those people.
You let us know. And we will gladly support whatever this, link it, contact survivorsiowa.org or whatever the hell it is that. Yeah,
but I agree. So Senator Peterson, I just saw her this last week and she was talking about you guys' case to the West Side Democrats. She thought she had it done. She had a majority. Every single member of the Senate voted for extending that for the Boy Scouts. And she had a Republican who was pushing it in the House. And the majority leader, Pat Grassley, just never acted on it. And see, we didn't have a Boy Scout, a priest abuse, a relative, in Grassley's world, there are many sexual assault survivors, whether he knows it or not.
Yeah.
We didn't have that kind of network that can say, hey, how can you be against this?
Yeah.
And that's our work.
What could be a possible way to rally all the survivors without having us like break apart in these silos? Like me, a survivor of educator sexual misconduct, I still want to support the Boy Scouts. Like I still want to support, survivors of abuse by priests. And it's not like, I don't think that survivors like don't care about those other issues, but like I'm not on like any mailing list for abuse for priests or I don't know. So there seems to be a way, right? There is a way for us there's so many of us, but like, how do we organize? How do we think of bigger picture versus just like those silos?
Well, since I moved back, I've been thinking about that all the time. And I feel like this is what I know how to do. Like I've political scientist, I've studied feminist social movements, I'm relatively new to this environment, so I have to kind of start from scratch a little bit. And Janet has all sorts of great ideas. And the other thing is I'm real interested in now, like the states that have done it. So like the Cosby people really organized in California and got, they have a lot of great legislation in California. They have a lot of good people working on it. It's kind of intimidating because you kind of think, oh shit, how well maybe we can do phase 1 in Iowa, right?
Yeah.
But there's more people out there, I think, who are writing about this now, who are more aware. And that's another job that we have to do is we have to get their attention. Like Krakauer, who wrote Missoula, like he just got motivated to write that because like it was a friend of the family who'd been raped, at the University of Montana or whatever. And so those folks, once they get, jazzed up about it, they keep going, like a Nick Kristof or somebody like that. So we got to find those people in Iowa that are still working, and we got to reach out to them, and we got to use them to help us. And, the things that was so amazing about what SNAP did is like they got in people's faces. Like when, the bishop in New Orleans came down, the SNAP people were there in the front row with their T-shirts on.
Like it is work, right? Like I've been trying to get in contact with, my representative here who is a Republican just to try to be like, hey, like, because I work with Janet and we're recording with her tomorrow, and it's like, but I need to like broaden it, right? Like I need to start like communicating with the other side and like kind of getting those people that have been like blocking it, at least to understand why this is an important subject. And I mean, like, it's just been like, why don't you just email me your thoughts? And I'm like, no, we're going to have a meeting in person and we're going to talk about this. And then it's like, haven't heard back from a month. And I emailed him today and I was like, hey, following up, buddy.
That's what's so great. I mean, like, people like Rob Sand and stuff, they're out at these town hall meetings and you go and you sit in the front row. I mean, I don't wear my fuck rape
Republicans
culture
aren't
t-shirt.
doing town hall meetings though.
Yeah,
they're not listening.
But
Rob Sand is he's actually having a political event at my place of employment next week.
Well, make sure you stand in the front because he's already primed. He like one of the things he didn't know when I first confronted, so I go up and I'm very brief. I only say one or two sentences or whatever. I can't remember what my imagined segue was. I think it was, your whole theme is holding people accountable. Right. And so, of course, you're going to be for this, too. And one of the things that he didn't know is that most, like the average Boy Scout discloses at age 52. Right. Yeah. But, you go to that meeting and you put your hand up first and you say, what are you going to do about statute of limitations? And what are you going to do about this? And the thing is, you're not just educating Rob Sand, you're educating every person in that room.
Yeah. And if he just learned of the disclosure age, like, other people don't know either.
People, not everybody's comfortable doing that.
Also giving people the knowledge that there's 1,000 ways to support. You don't have to be that badass standing on the Senate floor in your fucking power suit telling your story about your abuse. Like there's a million ways that you can support that. Right. And your level of comfort, and I think that a lot of times for survivors, they see a lot of times the only representation is of those really brave people putting themselves out there and who do pay a price one way or another for standing up and saying those things. But
it's so much fun.
Scenes.
Oh, it's so much fun to do.
Oh, yeah. We love it. We've done a press conference.
We're like, we're into it.
I loved your account of the press conference. Like, what? You mean I have to talk?
Oh my God. Okay, listen.
They told us the day of.
They asked me literally like 4 days earlier to attend. And then they told me like 24 hours earlier that I would be standing up with her. And then literally the morning of, like an hour before, they were like, but can you talk? And I was like, some prep would have been nice.
Would be very nice. Yeah. But Sally, we have kind of tiptoed around the fact that you have a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast, Deconstructing Rape, and what inspired you to start it? As a fellow podcaster, we love just an origin story of what made someone want to do a podcast, how it's going. And then also, I want to be the first to say that 100% I am interested in listening to the stories of the Me Too journalists. I think that is such a fascinating little series that you could do. And I know for sure you have one person interested. So if nothing else, please just do it for me.
Okay. Well, so I'm very lucky to know Brett Anderson, and he's a New York Times food reporter. He's in New Orleans, and he broke the story of John Besh, who was like the Harvey Weinstein of the food and chef industry.
Oh,
and so nice. I met him and I said, we have this common interest in sexual harassment, and he's just fantastic. And so I've met, that was one of the great things about having my platform at the Newcomb Institute is, when I invited people in, then I could include him in the dinner and, have really great conversations. So this sounds very grandiose given the huge chasm in the difference between our followers, but I thought I wanted to be kind of the Brene Brown of rape. So what I really like about Brene Brown is that, I feel like her podcasts, because she's a shame researcher, she reads the people's work and then asks questions that a peer would ask, as opposed to a journalist or somebody who's like, tell me about your work or something. So she asks really searching questions that I feel like add a lot of value. And then the other piece I thought is, from having taught courses on rape and advocated on rape, lots of people, and it was trial and error, like the first people who talked to me about their sexual assaults, I don't feel like I did a very great job in responding to them, but I learned. And so because I was out on this issue, lots of people, confided in me, and I got a lot better at kind of being happy with how I handled their disclosure. But a lot of journalists, whether Terry Gross or even Brene Brown, like they get people on and then they're not comfortable asking them about rape. Like when what was the woman, Megan,
Garrison?
right. Like you was like, why weren't you angrier? Right. Like that's what, that's a really good question. And so by having that comfort that you all have developed from, therapy, processing it, talking about yourself, I feel like you're better questioners than the average person who's talking about her book one day and then talking about something else the next day. So I'm very comfortable as somebody who taught courses on rape, like talking about sexual assault. And so I thought, so those are the two pieces of value I wanted to add. I was such a lurker observer for a really long time before I kind of came out as a survivor. And then I'd had all these fantastic people come to Tulane, and I'd met through this work, and going to the White House and all this stuff. So I had this group that I called like my rape pen pals. So like if I would read something, I could, email them, and through the email exchange, like they would help me understand something or point me to 3 more people that I didn't know about or tell me something I didn't know. Like I was just blown away that Joan Baez was a survivor of child sexual abuse. Like that came out on the Wiser Than Me podcast. So, like I was down a rabbit hole about Joan Baez and child sexual abuse. And I think I was the last person on earth to discover that Virginia Woolf was sexually abused as a child. And it was like, what? How could I have missed this fact, for my whole life? And how could I have not known this?
Yeah. And Sally Field talked about it on the podcast too. Yes. And she didn't come out until her book had come out.
I read her book. Yeah. I'm still really interested in it, and I was, really listening carefully, like when you did this stuff on the Epstein files too, because I was like, you got to get up. You got to start paying more attention to like the complexity of this, and then I read her book.
To take in. Like,
it's a lot to take in. You could only do Epstein stuff. Like you could just be the Epstein person.
Yes. Yeah. And you would never probably get to the bottom of the information. Like that thing is a deep, deep, deep sea. And I think that's what intimidates people from digging into it is it's like, I know it's vast. I know it's deep, and I know it's very disturbing versus like some cases are a little bit more like air quotes digestible. Right. So,
I want to talk more about so you've said that you've been like in this field last 15 years. So it's not where you started, but it's where you've been spending your time the last 15 years. Can you talk a little bit more about what you consider to be this field and some of the work that you have been doing?
I really wanted to look on how social movements interact with the courts. And so I did stuff on campaigns and making the case for why we need more women judges. So it had all been like studying employment discrimination or kind of women in the professions. And so I hadn't really done violence against women or that. And that then shifted when I saw this opportunity, but the opportunity came to me as somebody more in a leadership position than as a scholar. We did one of the things I was really proud of that I was starting to tell you about the climate surveys is there was this whole group of scholars that came together at Georgia State and elsewhere, and they developed a protocol for doing these climate surveys so that if you did the study at Tulane and then they did the study at the University of Texas, Austin, you would be measuring the same things in the same way, so you would be able to compare them, and they made it available for free. Then I started teaching a course on rape and got real involved in that, even though, I wasn't really supposed to be doing that anyway. I was supposed to be the administrator of this thing, not a regular faculty person. And then I got very disillusioned with it all after things changed. So, I was kind of sort of thinking, well, what am I going to do with all this interest and this expertise? And that's the thing I've been trying to kind of figure out, what to do is how to get involved. And so my big pet project, besides the one we talked about for like statute of limitations in Iowa, is what we call kind of empowerment self-defense. And that I interviewed Charlene Sen for the podcast. And so she has developed this 12-hour training, and the initial one was designed for women entering college, but she's now developed ones for girls as well as trans women. And she's done randomized clinical trials on them, and it reduces the risk of sexual assault by more than 15%. 50%. Wow. 50%.
Okay. And 50.
50, right?
Is this a training anybody could take out of curiosity?
Yeah. Well, any women or, people who identify as
female
women.
identifying. Yeah.
Yes. And then a lot of the gender studies folks think it's victim blaming, because we're supposed to be teaching men how not to perpetrate, not women how to resist, which I think is wrong, because I've done the training and it's like boot camp for unlearning victim blaming. It's like the most impactful thing I've ever done. The Coast Guard, they were using it for all their women recruits because it's one of the few evidence-based things that works. And it's sort of like, to me, it's like, we have this drug that cures AIDS, but we're not going to use it. It's called EAAA. So it's Empower, and they call it Flip the Script. And so if you listen to the Charlene Sen, she's the person who did it and published it in the New England Journal of Medicine. And so she runs a thing called the SARE Center, Sexual Assault Research. And it really bothers me that, we don't know more about it. And it frustrates me that campuses like the University of Iowa had it for a while and then they stopped it. We're trying to get it brought back there, but it's just a really bad state climate right now for any diversity initiatives.
You mentioned before that you thought that Drake University, which Diana is in Des Moines for your information, is doing a really good job. What are they doing that you think sets them above and beyond? Like, this is an example of a college that is doing the right things.
They have stuff in the syllabi. They have training for students who want to work on this stuff. They have prevention education. They're connected to the facilities that can do the forensic exams. They're doing a lot of good programming. The woman who's in charge of it came out of a rape crisis center, and then she became like the assistant dean of students. And so she's really facilitated a lot of really good stuff. So, they're like, if you made a list of, what your dream would be, they're pretty good on that list.
They're taking some good steps.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I have a friend whose daughter is planning on going there, so I'm feeling relief right now.
I want to share about a little thought journey I was just on, because I share the sentiment with, I think, some of the critics, maybe at first, of the EAAA, because my reaction immediately is like, but the men need to also learn. And so, again, I'm happy that there's different options for keeping people safe, but I'm just saying, I'm frustrated that why aren't there more interventions to stop men, to take them step by step of
Diana, you should create a boot camp for boys.
I'm not a man. I think it has to be not all the way. Not a man. She, they. I embrace my masculinity, but a man's not going to listen to some brown girl.
I think it does have to be men for men. I think it's a totally different. 100%. And the people that are doing that work, I think, are fabulous. And also you can talk to men, because the only way, men, that's a big thing in prison, right? Men are really afraid of sexual assault in prison. And that's where they're capable, I think, of understanding how women feel vulnerable in certain situations. Yeah. But I think we do need it. I think we need so many things.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not one fix, one training, or one law, or one anything that is going to fix it. It's like we said before, it's an extremely complicated issue. But then I also understand the flip side of it, Diana, of God damn it, it's frustrating that women are having to do all this labor to prevent being assaulted and abused. And then the men aren't being asked or given the opportunity to do that labor, because there's the other part of it is it would probably be very uncomfortable to have to acknowledge that you have the capacity to hurt somebody in that way. But if you're a decent human being, you don't want to. And there are a lot of situations where, in retrospect, people look back and they go, fuck, man, I took advantage of that person. And I at the time, I didn't realize what I was doing, or I didn't care. And now I do. And like, that could also prevent all these people from possibly doing something that not only hurt somebody else, but then later in their life, they realized that they were being really shitty and like really caused some damage.
Where do you find joy and hope when you are maybe not feeling the most, I guess, hopeful, about the state of the world, or the state of this work, and specifically, how do you fill your cup? How do you replenish your soul and find joy?
I actually get a lot of inspiration from other people, so listening to your podcast and thinking you guys had no idea what you were doing. Like, should we go to the police first? Should we go to the educators first? Should we go to civil law first versus criminal law? Should we fuck him over in a web page? How do we do this stuff? What should we do?
All those things.
Yes. And I found most touching about the podcast was you, Diana, going to the public library, free lawyer, how to find a lawyer, okay, I don't know this system, but I'm going to, figure it out. And Sarah, the way your dad said, oh God, you got to do this or don't do it this way or whatever. But, so people steered you and stuff, but it was
very much.
I don't have a playbook, but I'm going to do stuff anyway. That's so seeing other people doing that, so to be honest, I feel quite guilty that because I've been so distressed about the end of the rule of law that I feel like I can't watch Trump on TV. I hate him so much. Every time I find out that somebody I know has voted for Trump, it feels to me as a survival, as a personal betrayal.
Yeah.
So, so I can't watch him on TV, and I haven't been reading the newspaper the same way. And for a political scientist, I haven't been reading Supreme Court decisions and stuff. So I feel like I've been this slacker, but I've been re-engaging, that was just, I guess, something I had to do. And so I was starting to re-engage. I have a very, upbeat partner who makes me laugh all the time.
That's
awesome. And is also really intellectually engaged and politically engaged. So that, and, I have a cat.
What's your cat's name?
His name is Howard.
Howard the cat. Oh, that's the cutest
cat.
The other thing we haven't talked about is I'm really interested in women in prison. So I've been trying to, get involved with that stuff. And I really like to read for pleasure, both fiction and nonfiction. Like I was telling you, the Rebecca Kwang book about academics. I do a lot of exercise. I play pickleball. When I was in Florida, I play bridge. Played bridge in Florida. And that was one of the things, when women would talk to me about retirement and they'd say you could play bridge. And I would just think, well, just shoot me right now, But it's different when you're in it. It's a really great game anyway. And my mom is 96. And so I'm doing a lot of stuff with her, but just figuring it out like everybody else. What's the mix going to be? And what do I want to do in the time I have left?
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of cups to pour from, which is important. And also, I think, you shouldn't feel bad about stepping away. We talk about that a lot of sometimes you have to. I love horror movies, and I went through a year straight during our actively when we were taking care of our case, could not watch any horror, could not listen to any true crime. I was watching Hallmark Christmas movies for a year straight. And it was delightful. And it was exactly what I needed, because I was I cannot carry any more terrible shit than what I'm doing right now.
It's my friend who said, every night during the worst of it, we just had to watch All Creatures Great and Small.
Oh.
Yeah.
About a vet that's fixing the horse,
Yeah. Sometimes we all need a little bit of dissociation nation and just tune out a little bit from time to time. But it's important to plug back in eventually, right?
Yeah. But I feel too there's a way, I really like the way you put it, that, there's a place for everybody. So telling your story over and over again, that may not be your thing, but there's something else you can do.
Well, thank you so much for being on Blooming.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for your podcast, and I'm keeping learning from it.
Oh, thank you for your podcast and all the work you do, all the work you have done.
All right.
Okay. I think that's it.
Well, bye.
Yes. Give your kitty cat a hi for us.
I will. Okay, now I don't know how to shut off.
You should.
I think
a little leave.
Leave.
A little leave.
She just goes. Leave! Oh my god! That has to be in the final recording. Leave! Bye! That was amazing.
Oh my god.